know what makes me sick? You know what makes me want to get people's attention by sticking an M16 up their noses? It's people wanting to know what I really believe. I believe that freedom of speech is one of our greatest freedoms. And it should apply to everybody, except if they spouting some left-wing liberal pinko propaganda, or they as guests on the Phil Donahue show. I believe in the right to keep and bear arms and display them on the rifle rack in your pickup. I believe in freedom of religion, unless it's some goofball foreign religion that involves annoying people in airports or begging and sobbing on TV for love offerings. I believe in separation of church and state, because if they don't have that, some pinhead will want to have some law making you get up and go to church on Sunday when you're trying to sleep off a hangover. I believe in freedom of the press. Unless it's some left-wing liberal mamby-pamby commie propaganda sniveling rag like a New York Times or the Washington Post. I believe in free elections. Unless people plan on voting for some pinko like Ted Kennedy. I believe in the military draft. If I had to clean latrines and eat sea rations, everybody else ought to have to do it too. It'll develop your character. I believe in birth control. And I believe in Dan Rather's case it ought to be made retroactive. I believe that illegal aliens ought to be deported, starting with Prince, Pee Wee Herman, and Michael Jackson. 'Cause ain't no way nobody's gonna tell me them geeks was born in America. I believe we ought to end the trade deficit by ending the import of pure water and BMWs. That'll drive them yuppies crazy. Wake up, America! I believe in America and American-made products. Only thing we ought to import is Arab oil and them big blonde Swedish women that like sunbathing in the nude so they don't get tan lines. I'm Earl Pitts, American. Pitts off. You know what makes me sick? You know what makes me so irritated I could just make blue mush by shoving a Smurf into a food processor? It used to be when you got up on Saturday morning, you could look forward to some real entertainment. You know, like Sylvester trying to eat that annoying Tweety Bird, Bugs Bunny getting the best of Yosemite Sam and Elmer Fudd, Daffy Duck doing some stuff that'd put J.R. Ewing to shame, Porky Pig mumbling and stuttering, Yogi and Boo Boo stealing picnic baskets, Huckleberry Hound and Pixie and Dixie annoying the hell out of that Mr. Jenks the cat. Now what do you got? A bunch of toy-selling, universe-saving superhero garbage. She-Ra, Princess of Power, He-Man and the Masters of the Universe, G.I. Joe, GoBots, and Transformers. In between the adventures of these animated pinheads, they keep trying to hawk all this super expensive crapola so your kids will spend the whole weekend whining and sniveling about how they really need some piece of plastic and metal that costs an arm and a leg. You never seen Wile E. Coyote trying to sell a giant pack of Acme metal birdseed with Roadrunner and Coyote action figures sold separately to a bunch of runny-nosed little yard apes, did you? Hell no, you didn't. But it don't bother old G.I. Joe a nickel's worth to try to sell you an aircraft carrier and a whole deck of fighter planes armed with nuclear weapons for a couple of $100. I'm surprised they ain't tried to peddle a G.I. Joe action latrine with squatting G.I. Joe and G.I. Joe latrine orderly figures sold separately. And they never tried to make a movie using real people for Bugs Bunny and Yosemite Sam like they did with He-Man and the Masters of the Universe. Wake up, America! You'll know it's real clean, wholesome Saturday morning cartoon entertainment if you see somebody getting squashed flat by a steamroller, and they don't try to sell you the steamroller and squash flat action figure. I'm Earl Pitts, America. Pitts off. You know what makes me sick? You know what makes me so angry? I just want to let a mommy porcupine build a nest in my shorts. See, yuppie butt Crayola sniffing mamby-pamby geeky-pied colors what's cropping up these days. I mean, when I was a kid, we got our new pack of Christmas Crayolas. Hell, 8 colors was enough. You had your green for the ground, you had your brown for the trees, blue for the sky, and black for the bathroom wall in school. And you didn't need goldenrod or burnt sienna or thistle. Gah! I'm over at the bank yesterday, and I'm standing behind some yuppie broad what's ordering a new checkbook. You know she's a yuppie bimbo 'cause she's wearing this hair what's all fluffed up. She got them nylons on what's got little decorations in them. And she got her nose stuck so far in there you'd swear she just cut loose and wanted to be the last one in the bank to notice it. So anyway, the bank tell her ask this damn bub if she wants the standard blue checks. Miss Prissy Nose says, "Have you got something in taupe?" Taupe? I'm thinking, taupe? Maybe I thought too loud. They turned and looked at me. I said, "Yeah, taupe. There's one standing right in front of me." Now, I don't mind new colors, but let's give them names so you know what they look like. Not something stupid like periwinkle. Like a combination of green and yellow. That should be called sinus infection green. Or when the ketchup sucks into the top of the hamburger bun. That should be called wounded red. And I ain't gonna tell you what puce looks like. Wake up, America! I'm sure these new colors come directly from San Francisco, where Bruce and Lawrence sit upon the apricot bench under the azure sky, staring at each other's periwinkle eyes. Makes me want to blow my technicolor guts. I'm Earl Pitts, American. Pitts off. You know what makes me sick? You know what makes me want to run a paper boy through a snowblower? These sniveling, sob-sister, bleeding-heart, wussy news geeks, all of a sudden they saying, America might have bombed Libya for something Syria did. We might have made a mistake. Well, to apologize to Muammar Gaddafi and this pack of screaming towelheads for blowing up parts of that sand pile he called a country. In a pig's patoot. Fact is, we ought to do it at least once or twice a month for the hell of it. I notice we ain't heard too much out of Muammar Gaddafi babbling about how he's gonna sink a whole U.S. Navy for crossing his line of death. If Syria was responsible for whatever we bombed the hell out of Libya for, then we ought to make a visit to Yasser Camel Fat or whoever the hell's running that sand pile and blow hell out of them too. And if we happen to be in the neighborhood to blow the hell out of a bunch of Shiite towelhead Iranians, well, it might teach them a few manners too. We never had no problem with these foreign pinheads when we used to sail in with some battleships and a couple of Marines, take over some country for overcharging tourists for postcards. We don't do that no more because we got a bunch of panty-waist, sniveling, commie-loving, peace-freak, googly-eyed geeks in Congress. If we was to get some real men in there, we wouldn't have no troubles. I mean, if the Japanese didn't do nothing about trade deficits or the dollar falling against the yen, we could fix that real quick. Wake up, America! You U.S. carriers slipping up next to Japan on some Sunday morning might teach them something. And arrest them foreigners, too. I'm Earl Pitts, America. Maybe I ought to be an officer in Washington. Think about that? Think about it. Pitts off. know what makes me sick? You know what makes me want to use the Surgeon General's beard to scrub my pots and pans? It's just that some people ain't ever gonna be the type of folks you won't spend no time with. I mean, can you imagine going bowling with a Surgeon General? I mean, you'd sit back and light you up a cigarette to ease the tension after you missed a 7-10 split. And this geek can lean over and say, "Caution, I've determined that smoking may lead to emphysema and other pulmonary disease." Hell, if you was to enjoy winning a beer frame with a nice cold red, white, and blue, old fuzz-faced C. Everett Koop would probably say, "Caution, I've determined that a cold beer leads to cirrhosis of the liver and the screaming heebie-jeebies." And can you imagine going fishing with Jacques Cousteau? You'd hold you and a nice big channel cat on a dough ball. You'd be about to slip him on your stringer, and old Jock would come up and go into his spiel about the rare, beautiful, and delicate channel catfish, searching for nourishment and romance in the silt and beer can-laden water of whatever creek it was you was fishing in. Well, the worst thing be going to the demolition derby with that whiny doofus, Ralph Nader. He spent the entire evening whining and sniveling about safety defects and them cars bumping into each other. And then he'd start in on everything else. You know, like, "Hey, there's splinters in the bleacher seats." You'll end up strangling him with his own tie. That's why I hang around with Dub and Junior Meeker. They my buddies and they enjoy life in the fast lane. And they wanted me to mention them on radio. Sure, boys. Wake up, America! If I was president of these here USA states, I'd have Dub as Surgeon General and Junior Secretary of Transportation. They'd put more fun in your life, wouldn't they? I'm Earl Pitts, American. Pitts off. You know what makes me sick? You know what makes me want to skin some bleeding heart liberal? I had to take Pearl downtown to buy some women's stuff. I ain't about to go hang around them ladies' foundation garments departments in some damn department store. So as I was walking around downtown, I see this pack of bleeding heart, picket sign waving, googly-eyed, whiny boy simpletons hanging around in front of some store. This girl with Coke bottle bottom glasses, a flat chest and breath that had knocked down a charging bull elephant, comes up and asked me to sign this petition she was carrying. Well, I asked her what the hell it was, and she said, "This is to stop people from slaughtering all the helpless little animals for their fur." And then I noticed these dimwits was hanging around in front of some fur coat store, and I says, "Hell no, I ain't signing nothing like that." Well, they look at me like, "What? You don't help little animals?" Well, most of them animals what end up as fur coats ain't good for much of nothing else anyhow. They don't make good pets. They ain't no good to eat. And they just generally is a pain in the butt. What good is a mink? They ain't nothing but high-class weasels that kill and eat chickens. Then I notice all these do-gooders is wearing leather shoes, which comes from cowhide, which means somebody killed a poor cow so they could have shoes. And unless they only wore shoes made from cows that died of old age, they just as guilty. Next thing you know, these pinheads will be picketing for animals to get food stamps and a right to vote. Yes, wake up, America! These people think animals ought to have rights. We ought to put them in with a couple of pit bulls and let them discuss voter registration. I'm Earl Pitts, American. Pitts off. You know what makes me sick? You know what makes me want to brand USA on my forehead and take a vacation to Tehran? Say damn flea-bitten, rag-head, she-hot Iranians. They claim that since we blew up some of the junk oil platforms that the U.S. and Iran's in a full-fledged war. And then Reagan said that these prayer rug kneeling pinheads ain't that stupid. The hell they ain't. You lived in some scruffy sandpile country where the national bird is the fly, wore old towels you stole from Holiday Inn around your head, and had some ancient senile geek that looked like a skinny Gabby Hayes in a bathrobe muttering and drooling in his beard running your country. How damn smart could you be? These damn bubs believe if they get killed in a war, they're going to be martyrs and go straight to heaven. So they figure the best way to disarm a landmine is to go jump up and down on top of it. These is the people that Reagan figures ain't dumb enough to start a war. Horse pucky. If we wanted to do something real nice so for them, we ought to simply nuke them. I mean, if they want to all be martyrs and go straight to heaven, why the hell don't we oblige them? And then these scumballs claim they gonna sue the U.S. for blowing up a junky old oil platform. And they only asking $500 million. If you think regular lawyers are widder and orphan robbing slimeballs, think about these Iranian lawyers. Yeesh. Saying Iranians ain't stupid enough to do something is like saying Robin Leach ain't a loudmouth. Wake up, America! Ain't no real reason for Iran to exist, except maybe as a nuclear waste and toxic waste disposal dump. That way we can send Ralph Nader to keep an eye on it. Get rid of him, too. I'm Earl Pitts, American. Pitts off. You know what makes me sick? You know what makes me want to paddle a big old bulbous back end of a baboon with my bare hand? Well, me and the old lady was in the mall this weekend. We walk in this snooty-nosed, big-name department store where you got to walk through an odor aisle, to get in the store. Well, they got all the perfume stuff. With some bleached blonde bimbo what's got yummy clothes on and got a name tag what announces to the world her name is Buffy. Well, she starts chasing me down the aisle with a little old spray bottle of this stuff. It looks like an athlete's drug test sample. And she talking to me. She said, sir, you want to smell like a rugged macho man? And I said, girl, you won't bleed like a squealing stuck pig? Gee. Women don't make you, old man, wearing no unnatural, sissified, prissy pants perfume. I mean, the only time I wore a scent was when Earl Jr. bought me a bottle of Aquavelva for Daddy's Day. And Pearl helps this poor store creature. She says, oh, go on, Earl, try some of that cologne. It's wildlife musk. Hell, I ain't putting no musk on my face. Do you know what musk is? It's animal sex hormones, that's what it is. You know how they get animal sex hormones from an animal into a little bottle in a department store? Well, see, they get a herd of pigs into a wild sexual frenzy. How, I don't know. And really don't want to know. So they get these pigs sweating and frothing with sexual anticipation, and then they grab them and squeegee them off with a gas station squeegee. They do. Yuck. Wake up, America. I ain't putting frustrated pig sweat on my face. You want me to smell like a real macho man, I won't change my shorts for a couple of weeks. I smell some macho, your eyes will water. I'm Earl Pitts, American. Pitts off. You know what makes me sick? You know what makes me want to do a little flamenco dancing on some Spaniard's groin? These sissified, bull-stabbing, burrito-breath, spangle-tot, wearing footy-talking Spaniards has decided they don't want to let the U.S. of A. keep no airplanes in Spain. You hear about that? If I ain't mistaken now, ain't these the same wusses that wouldn't let the U.S. of A. fly over their rat hole of a country to bomb the hell out of their pal Muammar Gaddafi? These sniveling weasels is supposed to be our friends. Well, yeah. I guess they forgot about the Spanish-American War in 1898. That's the one where we kicked Pedro's butt all the way from the Caribbean back to Madrid. Took a U.S. of A. about 15 minutes to do it. They just lucky we don't sail over and take over that whole damn shooting match, kooky-rotchies and all. I guess we got to do something to teach Pedro it ain't nice to do something like that to America. So I, for one, ain't buying nothing from Spain. You hear that, Pedro? I ain't buying no more of your olives. That's all I can think of. Can you think of something else come from Spain? Them pinko Latinos don't make nothing. And if I was a candidate for president right now, I'd be addressing this issue. Yep, I'd be writing the address Madrid on a couple of nuclear warheads. If you ain't with us, you against us. Wake up, America! I think if Pedro does something else we don't like, we could get really nasty and send Charo and Julio Iglesias back. I guarantee they won't like that. I'm Earl Pitts, American. Pitts on. You know what makes me sick? You know what makes me so mad? I can do a 20-minute drum solo on Judge Wapner's head with a tar tool. It's sitting on a jury. Gee, you gotta get off work and then sit in some courthouse and look at some of the sleaziest, immoral scumbags that ever took a breath of air. And their clients ain't much better. Jury duty pays $7.50 a day. Now, for most of the people who sign up for it, that's a raise. But it's something I'd just soon avoid. After all, getting out of jury duty is as American as lying, cheating politicians. When I went down for jury duty, this shyster lawyer said, "Mr. Pitts, what do you think about sequestering?" And I said, "Well, they look good on Porter Wagner's suits. I like them sequestrings that go all over there." And then the judge fined me $10 for contempt of court. Gee, I guess this ignoramus had never seen the Porter Wagner show. And I gotta pay for it. You're damn right I have contempt for court. Empire-mongering, gavel-swinging, probation-granting, wrist-slapping judges is the reason so many criminals is walking the streets. Women judges is the worst. I don't mean to be chauvinistic. I'm as feminist as the next guy. One time I got a ticket for driving 70 in the school zone. So I went in front of this woman judge and told her, "Weren't my fault, the speedometer was broke." That looks like she would have been, logical about all that, wouldn't it? But instead, she must have broke a fingernail that morning or lost her mind or something, 'cause she threw the book at me. Gee, it just goes to show how hard it is for a man to be open-minded about women's rights. Gee, wake up, America! Next time you get asked if you want a jury trial, remember, a jury is made up of men and women not smart enough to get out of it. Think about that. I'm Earl Pitts, American. Pitts all. You know what makes me sick? You know what makes me want to neuter a camel with a dull pair of tin snips? See sand-sucking doofus she-hot for brains iron you. And now these prayer rug-kneeling slug-heads is made the 4th of November, the day these scumbuckets took over the American embassy, a national holiday. Do these dim-wit screaming fanatics give the holiday some nice name like Arbor Day or Memorial Day or Thanksgiving? No. Our I bet these ragheads make a real holiday out of it. First, Mommy and Daddy Towelhead will take little Moamar and Fatima down to the military surplus store to sit on Comedy Claus's lap so they can tell him what they want for Death to America Day. Then on Death to America Day Eve, they'll hang up their smelly sandals by the chimney and go to bed, listen for Comedy Claus sleigh drawn by 8 tiny camels. And then Comedy Claus will come down the chimney with their presents. Machine guns, landmines, grenades, poison gas, and surface-to-air missiles. And then after everybody opens their presents, the family will sit down to the traditional Death to America Day dinner in Iran. Roast goat and sheep eyes. And then they'll all go downtown jumping up and down screaming and waving their Death to America Day banners. I'll tell you what we really ought to do. We ought to help these little sand weasels in the Iran celebration Death to America Day. We ought to help them with a nice big free fireworks display. I figure a 50-megaton warhead right down the middle of downtown Tehran just about ought to do it. Wake up, America! We don't need to take no garbage from these people, since we got the nuke and they ain't. We ought to give them a different holiday to celebrate. Radioactive Mutant Day. I'm Earl Pitts, American. Pitts off. You know what makes me sick? You know what makes me want to pluck out a Tomato D's eyebrows with a pair of vice grips? Pearl started whining about how she was tired of cooking. Wanted to go out to eat to a nice restaurant. I told her okay, and did she want to use a drive-thru or eat inside? She said no, she didn't want no fast food. I told her, I know this good Mexican place. Food's real bad, but it'll clean you out slicker than a whistle. Now she had to go to this French restaurant. And I had to put on a shirt. Gee. I couldn't figure out if we were supposed to eat the food or give it a funeral. We get there, we get to sit down, some faggy-pants geek named Armand said it was his pleasure to serve us this evening in some phony Frenchy accent. So to sort of break the ice, I told him this Frenchy joke. Something about greasing your car by running over a Frenchman. Well, this light and this loafer's wussy didn't crack a smile. Obviously, them French ain't got no sense of humor. Then Armand suggests for appetizer we have some escargot, which, by the way, if you don't know French, is snails. Yep, ain't nothing giving me a better appetite than something you catch by looking under a rock. I got me a steak and them pommes frites, which is French fries. Pearl orders a chicken in wine sauce. Gee, learn some Mad Dog 2020 by throwing a chicken in it. Well then, he hands me this menu and he said, it's a wine list. I looked it up and down and I said, I'll take a quart of Bridget Bardot's bath water. They didn't have that. I said, I'll take me a 32-ounce blue ribbon. That's the trouble with these Frenchies. Why, I done ate their brains out. They didn't have no blue ribbon. Wake up, America! First they try feeding me and Pearl some chocolate mousse meat for dessert. And then this Armand geek said something nasty sounding in French when I left him a nice 85-cent tip. Them frogs ain't grateful for nothing. I'm Earl Pitts, American Pitts. You know what makes me sick? You know what makes me want to take the letters UN, turn them around to NU, and add a KE on the end of it? This dolt from the UN. He went over to chat with the Ayatollah, and whichever raghead it is that's running Iraq. Try to get them to settle their differences peacefully. Well, these camel jockeys listened to this pinhead a couple minutes, went back to bombing each other. That's about good as the UN ever does. What it is, the U.S. gives these foreigners a place to build the UN. Give them a couple of $1 billion to keep it going, and what the hell do we get out of it? We get a bunch of third world commie-fied geeks coming in there wearing sheets that they swap from the remoter end and babbling in some strange language. All they care about's talking about how bad the running dog Wall Street imperialistic Yankee dogs is, and can they borrow about $15 trillion that they gonna pay us back as soon as they harvest a crop of figs and dates. That is, if a herd of locusts don't come in and eat everything in the whole bug-infested rat hole they live in. And if that happens, you get to see Sally Struthers on TV begging for you to send them more money, so little Muammar Yasser Fat can grow up and start a war with your kids. There ain't but one thing to do. We just run all them so-called diplomats back to their third world roach motel and bulldoze the whole UN shebang to the ground and put a shopping center with a Kmart and a bowling alley in. That's what President Earl Pitts would do if he was president. By you, I might be thinking about that. Wake up, America! Let's chunk them UN doofuses out there. And if they don't like it, what they gonna do? Sink the UN army on us? Ooh, I'm Earl Pitts, American. That's all. You know what makes me sick? You know what makes me want to put a first-class stamp on some goofball's forehead and then cancel it with a brick? These dollar-sucking, whining, and begging, subsidy-pleading, pork-butt, goof-off gold bricks that run the U.S. Post Office. They claiming if Congress don't slip them a few measly $1 billion, they're going to have to cut back on some of their so-called services. Oh, boo-hoo. Like what? They only gonna have a post office open 6 hours a day, huh? Well, that means them clerks only be able to be snooty and slow and sloppy 6 hours a day. And that'll cut them down to only 6 coffee breaks a day, too. And then they're only gonna be able to deliver mail 5 days a week instead of 6. That means they'll lose 5 days worth of mail instead of 6. Of course, to get that money, they could try doing something else instead of begging. Like laying off some of them deadbeats that spend a day getting greasy thumbprints on your subscription copies of Playboy and Penthouse. And they can lay them people off what jumps up and down on sacks of mail marked fragile. And another thing, I want to know how come the IRS gets to send their mail free, and then they say they won't deliver your tax return if you don't put a stamp on it. What the hell kind of garbage is this? If the IRS is gonna make me suffer, why don't them pinheads at the post office that won't be my friend so I give them some money make IRS suffer some back? Wake up, America! If the post office wants money that bad, let the Postmaster General get it the old-fashioned way. Go on TV and tell people God's gonna kill him unless you pony up a couple of billion in donations. It worked for all. I'm Earl Pitts, American Pitts off. You know what makes me sick? You know what makes me so angry I just want to fill a cat's litter box with quicksand and hang around and wait for the fun to start. It's these political hoodoo wimpy-headed pea-brains what try to handicap a presidential election like it's some football game or something. They say, well, Jesse Jackson has black voters and can be counted on pulling into the lead after the big Southern primary. And Paul Simon has the intellectual vote, and George Bush is counting on carrying the conservative vote, and Gary Hart's got the nymphomaniac vote, which means my neighbor Naomi's probably gonna campaign for the slug. And whenever these pigeon brain experts is talking to a candidate, they always ask them, how you going to solve a Middle East problem? Well, here's the Earl Pitts answer to the Middle East problem. There is no problem what a little dose of American know-how and a large dose of radiation can't solve. Well, I figured if we turned Beirut and Iran into thermonuclear parking lots, who the hell's gonna complain? Pakistan? Who gives a good horse flop what Pakistan thinks? Hell, I could even get Congress to fund the nuclear missiles. Now, you see, if Earl Pitts was president and I was gonna bomb Iran, I'd have to come up with some clever, acceptable name for them nub-nugget wieners in Congress. You know, something like Turban Renewal. Yeah, Turban Renewal. So that way it'd have a good name in them congressional wieners go, yeah, I'm gonna be for that. Wake up, America! If a political candidate can't see nuclear force as an acceptable means of dealing with towel-headed Ayatollah-worshipping terrorists, well, he ain't got the hang-it-down things it takes to be a good president. I'm Earl Pitts, American. Pitts off.